$4,105 for the price of one ticket to watch United States play Paraguay in Los Angeles. Not in Brazil, not in Argentina, not even in Paraguay. A country whose entire population roughly fits comfortably inside of the greater Manchester area. And that's before the fees kick in. Now, I lived in Los Angeles for 15 years. I know what that city does to people who think they are just going to go out for the evening cheaply and easily. It's not possible. And this is where FIFA has decided to send a million of you to this very affordable city. Now, that city itself struggles with sending its own citizens from Santa Monica to Burbank without it becoming a national news story every time. Every time I see that in the news where it's the traffic in LA and they try to pretend it's really bad, that is a normal day. It's not a special event. But this is where it's all about to get even crazier because football is about to happen in Los Angeles and it is going to be a funny, expensive disaster. So when FIFA announced they were going to be doing the World Cup and LA would host the matches at the SoFi Stadium, including the US opening game, I kind of did what any former resident of a major metropolitan city would do, seeing a huge event is going to go. I laughed for about 6 minutes and then I poured myself a drink and started taking notes on what disasters were going to come next. I This is not necessarily a sports video. I don't know what a false nine is. I'm not going to pretend to be. And after researching it, I feel like not many people actually do. But this video is more about a city I love, and an event and a collision about to happen in that city in slow motion, live on television before all of our eyes. Okay, let's get into the multitude of issues that we are already seeing play out and we're going to continue to see play out in these matches. Let's start with the tickets. Now, FIFA is the organization that brings you the World Cup once every 4 years and whatever they do for the rest of the time. Anyway, this year for 2026, they've introduced dynamic pricing. What is that, you might be asking? Well, it's the same model that hotels use, Uber uses, airlines use. And what it basically means is the real time price can change based on demand. So the more people who want to see a match, the more expensive it becomes, which seems fine until you remember this is the World Cup and a lot of people want to see these matches in person. But officially, the tickets start off at $60, but they stretch all the way up to $7,000. And that sounds reasonable, I suppose, until you look at the matches that are actually in that $60 range. They're not the ones that most people want to attend, and they're not in a city that ends with the name Los Angeles. The most expensive group stage ticket on sale anywhere in the tournament in the US was that opening match of the US and Paraguay. Those thousands of dollars. That ticket cost $4,105. I don't even have any friends in LA who went to the game. That is how much they were just annoyed with the whole setup because it's not just the ticket pricing, it's also the commute to the SoFi Stadium, and multiple other issues, but we'll get to those. So on top of the ticket pricing, FIFA also charges a service fee because of course, why not? There's a fee for spending your money on a ticket. And yeah, okay. So now on top of that $4,000 fee, you have to add on a service fee, which will probably easily take your ticket to four to $5,000 by the end of that. Now you might say, but again, back to the cheap $60 tickets, but they also get the service fee as well. And again, those are not in the major cities. And you're going to spend just as much money trying to get to those locations. because as everyone knows, the United States is a very car dependent country, and Los Angeles would be the most car dependent city that we have to offer the world. Now, these good matches are all in LA, the host nation, the host city, and they are priced at a level that matches really the cost of the city, but not for the average person going there. Take a working class family from Liverpool, the kind of family that actually produces the fans who actually build the culture around football. They're not going to spend the price of a very expensive holiday on a single 90-minute match halfway across the world. But you know what? Here's a really boring twist about the whole thing. Almost every host city has seen prices go up between October and January, but in Los Angeles, in some cases, the prices fell. And I know you're probably asking, how is that not good news? Doesn't that play into all of this? Until you realize FIFA noticed that in their algorithm with that dynamic pricing. So in reality, there's a tournament where there's cheap seats that are technically affordable. The good seats are aggressively unaffordable. And the entire concept of a working class football fan saving up to go see those games and not have to look at just the back of a pillar and not be able to see the pitch at all is basically impossible. Now, those seats will absolutely be filled. Don't get me wrong. They just won't necessarily be filled with fans, but people will be there. Okay, so you got your tickets. That's sorted. Now you've remortgaged your flat. You're going on a trip to America because that's not stressful to do in these days at all. And this is where it goes from boring and interesting to mostly just sad. Los Angeles, as I said, love the city, love hate, whatever, love it. But as I mentioned, it is the most car dependent city in America and one of the most car dependent cities in the world. About 92% of workers in LA drive themselves to work. Only 4.6% of workers commute by public transit. That's basically everyone in Los Angeles is in a car, driving to where they have to get to. Now, there is a metro system. The metro technically does exist. There are trains. They go places, I hear. They just happen to never go to the place that you're trying to get to or even remotely near where you're trying to get to. But again, to be fair, LA is trying very hard because they also have the Olympics coming up and they know this. They've known this is an issue for decades. Um, they have put so much work into the metro. Last year, they had over 25 million boardings, which is a huge increase onto the public transit than ever before. And the number sounds enormous until you realize Los Angeles is roughly 10 million people. And in that, on any given workday, fewer than 1 out of 10 are actually using public transportation. Now imagine that, adding that to the system in June in the heat with roughly 70,000 additional people coming to see a World Cup match. It's what, 8 times the amount of people? And LA Metro knows this. They have said as much politely that this is going to be a mess. So they have built 13 regional transit providers and a special direct bus line called the World Cup Enhancement Service. These buses will run every 10 minutes to maybe 13 minutes. I'm curious to see if they keep that timeline that the buses are notoriously off time in LA, but they'll be taking people from Los Angeles, from Orange County, everywhere. Service will begin about 3 hours before the match starts. There's no transfers, there's no parking required. In theory, there's no stress. It, it is on paper a very good plan. That's an honest credit to Metro. Great work. But the problem is not necessarily the plan. The problem is the city that the plan exists in. Let me tell you about the 405. Now, the 405 is officially called the San Diego Freeway. It is the most congested highway in California. A stretch of 405 between Santa Monica Boulevard and Valley Vista Boulevard is ranked the 11th most congested roadway in the entire United States. Drivers on the 405, on average, have a peak delay of every 13 minutes for every hour they're on the road during rush hour. This adds up to about 55 hours of commuting additionally added each year, which is 2.5 days of your life looking at brake lights. I have spent so much time on the 405. I speak about this from pure experience and perhaps PTSD. I've probably spent 2 years of my life stuck in traffic on the 405, and there is no alternative. If you know surface streets, you can kind of get around it, but it will not be faster. It is just a different thing to look at instead of the freeway while you're stuck in traffic. Now, Caltrans is running $143.7 million pavement rehabilitation on the 405 at this same time. Yeah. They do not want you to drive into the stadium. That is actually a thing they have said. They are making it even more impossible if you try to get around that. So the most important note here is that the stadium, on the most important nights, the roads around it are under construction at night. Yeah. And if you've ever lived in LA, this part is just have a seat. Have a seat for what's coming. SoFi Stadium, as I briefly touched on a second ago, has announced that for the World Cup, regular transit parking will not be available in the most car-dependent city in America, questionably one of the most car-dependent cities in the world. There will be no driving up to the stadium and parking. No, there is no just finding a space like any Angelino would do on a normal day at the stadium. The official parking prices for the 8 matches at SoFi Stadium for two premium matches, the US opener, the quarterfinal, parking is $300. And for the other 6 matches, parking is $250. What a deal, right? Yeah. $300 to park a car for a day or two. Yeah. Not, rent, partial rent, just right there. I have stayed in hotels that are in beautiful cities across the world for that price and not a parking lot in Inglewood, Los Angeles. Now, the Metro, they have made the Metro K line stop at SoFi. It's a $1.75 versus that 200 $300 price tag. They want you to take the Metro, but as we've talked about, let's see how it goes, right? Like, let's see how that all works out with the increased amount of people that they've never experienced, even though there are so many people in LA. They have spent 100 years neglecting public transit in LA. There really is no middle. With the freeway closed, the train trying its best, and no parking that is affordable, but still limited spaces, even if people want to pay for that parking. Not really sure how they're going to do all that. But for Angelinos, this is a familiar trade-off. It the event is not so much the problem, it's the transit to the event. I have myself experienced this. I went to SoFi Stadium to see the Rolling Stones several years ago. I saw Depeche Mode at the Forum. Just like LAX is not easy to navigate and get into, no stadium is. And they're like little micro examples of how terrible transit can be laid out in every way. Now, I think the other issue, which is not to be diminished on how it might even be the biggest issue, not the cost, because you can spend the money, go through, have fun, and still spend a lot. But can you get through? That's the biggest question we're already seeing play out here. There's been over 120 human rights organizations, including Amnesty International, that have issued formal travel advisories for players, journalists, and visitors traveling to the United States at this time for the tournament. An advisory warning to international visitors that they could face denial at entry at best, detention, deportation, racial profiling, eh, inhumane and inhuman welcome mats. And we've seen that play out for the past year and some change now. Just last year, when I was in Los Angeles last summer, I saw tanks in downtown LA for protesters and snipers on the buildings for protesters. So there's no pretending that this is a safe time to go to America. The sheriff said they're going to be there. The SoFi Stadium employees have been nonstop threatening to go on strike if ICE shows up at the detention centers. Then there was recently a British guy who had got a visa to go see the games back in January. I believe he applied, was approved. They just renounced that last week. We've already seen the Somalian referee, who's one of the top referees in the world, get denied entry. We've seen photos of teams stopped and searched at the airlines. And we've heard how when Iran plays their game, their team members land, play the game, and have to immediately get off US soil. That's not how a friendly game amongst the world is supposed to be approached. This is supposed to be a giant party with a ball in the middle, essentially. And when a host country needs to issue press releases saying, don't worry, we won't detain you if you're at the stadium, um, yeah, the party already kind of is dead. It doesn't have the energy that it deserves. Now, whether you think these policies are right or wrong, that's a separate conversation and probably an entire other video. But that is what I wanted to cover now. What matters is the perception. The perception right now in 2026 in cities all around the US, or all around the world, sorry, is that the US is not a safe place to visit right now. A fan in Mexico City, a journalist from Tehran, a family from Lagos, a student from Manchester. These are people that FIFA needs to convince, and these are the people who, in every day, are seeing the news coverage of immigration raids, federal agents at courthouses, detentions for no reason that get harder to explain the longer you read about them. So for many fans, the calculation of going to the World Cup has changed significantly. Um, the World Cup needs international fans. I mean, heck, they were able to get people to Qatar and not even have alcohol, and it somehow didn't sound as scary as going to America right now. So you can pay the band at a wedding, you can spend the money, you can throw the best party. But if no one shows up at the end of the day, all you have is an empty ballroom with chairs. If no one wants to come to your party, it doesn't matter how much money you spend on it. They're not coming. Now, LA is a city of immigrants. It always has been, it always will be. From Korean barbecue in K Town to Ethiopian food on Fairfax. That is the, oh man, and the tacos. Ah, love the tacos, love tacos. The food, the people. LA is alive because of immigrants. And is that the LA that people are going to encounter? Or is it something completely different that it's not? All these ICE agents, um, and freeways and transit and the price of tickets, all of this, it makes it not the same city. And I am very curious to see how these games play out. So, yeah. The final question I want to leave you with here, well, actually, there'll be another question after this, but this one is Who is the 2026 World Cup in Los Angeles truly for? It's not for the fans from Manchester. It's not for the college students. The tickets are too expensive. The journey is far too long. The hotels, which I had not even gotten to the price of those yet, could quite literally cover the cost of a small wedding. So, in practice, this is not for casual American fans or international casual fans. And let's be honest, most Americans don't even actually watch real football. They like the idea of real football about for 3 weeks every 4 years when a World Cup is on. And then they go back to whatever sport allows them to eat the most chicken wings. This is not comfortable for the international visitor who has been paying attention to any bit of news that is going on in America. The reassurances are stacking up through press releases and terrible speeches on the news, but I don't think they're landing. This event has turned into something that's kind of like corporate hospitality. The kind where a company is paying for people's tickets. The kind of where this is a $4,000 ticket is a tax deductible expense for a team building exercise. So people can stand around and drink and not even pay attention to the game and not really care. And this is not unique for LA. We're very used to giant modern mega events made for corporate America and corporate entities, the Olympics, the Super Bowl. It all becomes corporate. But the World Cup, more than any of them, has historically belonged to the fans. And this was the one tournament where people in the cheap seats are supposed to feel just as much of the spectacle as the people in the front and feel close to the players and the game. Traveling and spending thousands from another country when they could not really afford to go but went anyway because their team is playing and they want to see it. The World Cup has just been priced out. And the city itself, the freeways, the transit, the parking, the politics, the visa lines, the federal workers and uh masked up in the parking lot, and the pricing is not really helping. I'm not telling you to not go at this point. You've probably already decided if you're already there or going to go or not. Um, but be careful, be safe, get tacos if you do go. There will undoubtedly be moments at the stadium that are extraordinary. There always are. Football has a way of making things run excitingly, even when the plan is all messed up. But if you're a real fan, the kind who has been there to dozens of games, dozens of away matches, the kind who travels with the team because it's just what you do, uh, the World Cup is probably not designed for you this year. Definitely doesn't have you in mind. And that's not your fault. That's not even really LA's fault here. It is the structure of a modern city hosting a giant game that it was never built for being able to handle during a period of American history that is making the whole world really think twice about traveling there. It is, in short, a perfect storm in a city where it rarely rains. I, for one, clearly am going to be watching from here with a pint and relaxing, not having to stress about all the things you could face by just flying in. Are you at the World Cup right now? Do you know anyone who has actually made this journey? I'm curious. If you do, or if you have, what have you spent price-wise going on this already? Um, do you think this is truly a safe time and a safe situation for people to fly to America? Let me know in the comments below. I obviously, I read every one of them. I try to respond to as many as I can. Um, but yeah, let me know what you think about this because I've been thinking a lot about it. So just do that. Like, subscribe, hit that little bell, hype it, all those good things. And until the next time, I'll see you later. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe and leave a comment below. And as always, a special thanks to my members.